gave the range of ourselves, and I don't know if I believe me.
Hello everyone, welcome back, Dome here, and in this video I'm going to do something that many of you requested, many of you have been asking in the comments about, and this is which is my vocal chain when I'm using Fabfilter plugins. So I'm going to show you how I use the beautiful Fabfilter suite of plugins to treat my vocals right after this. So it's very interesting, but up to this point, I don't bring up Fabfilter plugins on my videos, and I'm not sure why, to be honest with you, because I use them all the time. They're amazing plugins, and they work, they have great user interfaces, and they sound amazing. And I thought I might change that, because quite a few of you asked me about Fabfilter plugins and which ones are my favorite ones, and how I use them when I mix. And I decided to put together this video where I'm going to be mixing a vocal with just Fabfilter plugins, and I'm going to show you the tricks that I use when I'm using these plugins. Of course, it's kind of rare that I only use Fabfilter plugins for mixing vocals, but I know that quite a few of you have Fabfilter and you like Fabfilter and you might want to learn something more about Fabfilter plugins and how to use them. And maybe this video will give you some tips and maybe it will give you some ideas and inspire you on how to use these plugins. But before we begin, maybe you just clicked on this video and you're not a subscriber, so welcome. If you like what you see, maybe you might want to consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed this video and it gives you some useful information, hit the like button. I would really appreciate it. It really helps. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with my usual synthwave track, and I'm going to load the DOM Fabfilter vocal chain so that we don't have to open every plugin and we waste time. And here we go. Here we have my Fabfilter vocal chain. So very quickly, I'm going to play back the vocal track without the plugins, and then I'm going to add them so you can see what the end result will be. So this is without any plugins. So as you can see, we're picking around -12, and I'm going to try and kind of retain this level. I'm going to, of course, want to boost those vocals, but I'm not going to do this using the fader. I'm going to work just with the plugins, and I want to make them brighter. I want to make them present. I want to make sure that every syllable, every word is heard, and then we're going to add a little bit of reverb and delay and give these vocals a little bit of sparkle. Now let me play this back again and I'm going to add the plugins. So as you can see, I'm not boosting an awful lot. We're again peaking around a little bit over 12 dBs, -12 dBs, and the same thing happens when we remove the plugins. So everything else was added using all the beautiful things that I'm going to show you right now. So let's begin, shall we? Let's start by going through every individual plugin. This is a really long chain, and I'm going to have a disclaimer here. Everything that I'm going to show you is indicative, so I won't do it on every vocal take, and every vocal take is different. That's why I'm not sure if I like to, portray this as presets, but I want to give you the methodology on how you can start approaching your vocal processing using Fabfilter plugins. Okay, the first thing that I do, and now I'm going to solo the vocal, and that's the only time where I'm soloing the vocal. I'm using Pro Q3 in this case, and this is my correction stage, right? So here is when I identify any problematic frequencies, and then I'm trying to tame them before we get to the compressors, before we get to the saturators, the EQs, all these things. So let's have a listen to this vocal. I'm going to solo it, and let's see how it sounds without it.
We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know we lost control.
Let's add it in.
We gave every inch of our soul. Found home, but I got it wrong. Fell in love, had to let it go. Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul.
So what am I doing here? Basically, I'm finding all the frequencies that are problematic and I'm just notching them out. Not too much, up to the point where I'm not missing anything, okay? But I'm removing some frequencies. For example, some nasal frequencies, some honkiness here in the 400s. I also have a dynamic EQ here. So this band here is a dynamic EQ. So I'm taming the low end a little bit, the proximity effect from the microphone, because it might be a little bit uneven, and then the compressor will have to work harder later on. I'm adding a little bit of top end because we're going to eventually want to make this vocal a little bit brighter. And I'm notching out a little bit at the 300s with the dynamic EQ as well, because I found that there are some problematic frequencies there. So let me boost all these frequencies one by one and let's see how they sound.
No, we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know we lost control.
So this has to go for sure. Let's try this one.
We gave every inch of our soul.
There's a little bit of a nasal,
But I got it wrong. Fell in love, had to let it go.
you know,
Don't
kind of
know
a
where I lost
hollow
control.
frequency. Let's try this one. This is the 800s, and I found that if I remove this frequency in this vocal,
We gave every inch of our soul.
yeah,
And I don't know if I have it in
it's like a little bit, you know, like that. What about the 400s?
me to let somebody in again.
I wanted to remove that because it was, again, making the vocals sound a little bit boxy. And let's try this one here.
And I don't know if I really believe.
See?
And I don't know if I have it in
You know,
me.
some of these are like room resonances. Some of them might be the microphone. And the last one is this one, which is like the dynamic EQ.
And I don't know if I have it in me.
And in the end, I have a filter. It's a 24 dB high-pass filter. And I'm also just a tiny bit like taking out this low-end rumble. Because her voice doesn't have too much low-end, it will just make things muddy in the end with a busy mix like this. Now, when I play this back, it might not be like a massive difference.
Don't know we lost control.
It's a little bit cleaner.
We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know we lost control.
But trust me, when we get to the compressor stage, you will see how important this process is. Now, the next plugin that I have in line is the Fabfilter de-esser. I want to tame those S's as soon as possible. But of course, if you've watched the video that I've done about de-essing, I'm going to link it right here. I'm showing you what's the absolutely best and the most pro way to de-ess. So I would probably not have to do this if I had done my clip gain and all these things. In my opinion, it's totally worth it. But if you're lazy, which you shouldn't be, you can use the Pro de-ess, and that's what I'm doing here. So let's try it and you'll see what it's doing. It's a very mild de-essing,
We lost control.
2-3 dBs.
We gave every inch of our soul.
And the next one in line is the Fabfilter Pro C2, which is, of course, a compressor. And in this case, I'm using the Opta style, and that's because I'm a huge lover of the LA2A, and this is the closest thing in this compressor that, you know, gives you this kind of optical compression style. And I think it sounds really nice.
We lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul.
And I'm compressing around 5 dBs tops. And I think for this track we need a little bit more than this. But I want to show you how it sounds if I don't have the Pro Q3 on the first slot. Let's have a listen.
Don't know we lost control.
Hear that?
We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul.
See, it makes a huge difference when you add the compressor. Because basically, when you start compressing, all these, you know, less than perfect frequencies might come out and they might disturb you. And the vocal sounds unfocused. It sounds that it's kind of blurry. it sounds a bit cloudy, but when you add the Pro Q3 before, the thing that we did at first,
Don't know where we lost control.
see this 400s?
We gave every inch of our soul.
It just clears up really nicely, and that's the reason why I always suggest that you do your corrective EQing first thing, okay? Before you start adding a compressor, you know? Don't even try another compressor if you don't correct for any possible problems. You might not have problems, and this is great, but most of the times you will find that one or two frequencies need a little bit of taming. Now, the next plugin that I have in line is an interesting one, and this is again a Pro C2 compressor. Now, you might ask, why a second compressor? Well, this serves a different purpose. This will make sure that the quiet phrases, the quiet parts of the vocal are even more balanced compared to the loud parts. And basically, I want to do this without over-compressing my vocal. And that's why this instance of Pro C2 does a lot of gain reduction. I have it on the pumping style, and I have the dry gain to 0, and the wet gain, I'm going to adjust this, okay? So when I have the wet gain all the way down, that means I only get the uncompressed signal. It's basically as if I didn't add this plugin to my chain. But once I start adding the wet gain, that means I'm introducing the super compressed signal from this compressor, and I'm making the vocal a little bit more compact without compressing the loud parts, right? So let's have a listen. I'm going to have it all the way to 0 first.
Don't know where we lost control.
See, it compresses a lot.
We gave every inch of our soul.
18 dBs of compression, okay? Let's introduce it.
Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know where we lost control.
Okay, without it.
We gave every inch of our soul. Found home, but I got it wrong. Found love, had to let it go. Don't know where we lost control.
So see, it kind of lifts the vocal a little bit more. It adds a nice pillow of volume there, and it just lifts everything up really nicely, but the vocal doesn't sound too compressed, you know? These loud passages don't go like squashed because they're free to breathe, because the dry signal is there and it's unaffected. So this is another thing. This I would adjust to taste. Maybe I will add a little bit more when I need it in some passages, or maybe I will automate the wet signal. So, you know, this is not like something that I would do all the time, but it's nevertheless a very cool trick. Now let's go for the next plugin, and the next one is really cool. This is Saturn II, and I love Saturn II for many things, and vocals is one of them. Now, here's what I do with Saturn II when it comes to vocals. Basically, I split the vocal into 3 parts, and I'm taking out the part that I don't need. So for example, this part, this one is, you know, my low end. This, I don't need this. You know, I'm going to turn it down a little bit, and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't get any distortion or anything like that, because this is all rumble, you know, her voice doesn't reach so low most of the times. And here is going to be my main vocal, the mid-range, and here I add the subtle saturation algorithm here, and I add a little bit of drive, I add a little bit of mid-range, you know, just a tiny bit, 0.55 dBs, a little bit of presence, and then at the very top, like 10K and over, I have another band, and here I have the subtle tape. I like tape on vocals. It gives you this really nice silky sound, and this is what I'm doing here. I'm adding some tape, and again, I add a little bit of presence, okay? So let's listen to how it sounds with and without.
Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Found home, but I got it wrong. Found love, had to let it go.
So it adds quite a bit of character with the mid-range, and also nice sheen with the tape algorithm on the top end, and it sounds really silky. It doesn't sound harsh.
Don't know where we lost control.
See?
We gave every inch of our soul.
Sometimes I will even just split it even higher, you know, and just add, you know, the top end just at 13K, just to get this little amazing silky tone.
Don't know where we lost control.
See?
We gave every inch of our soul.
And I'm doing this around 10K because I don't want this to go into sibilance territory, okay? So this is a big part of the sound. The next thing is the Pro MB, okay? The multi-band compressor expander, and this one I use it to add a little bit more control to the whole frequency range of the vocal, to make sure that if there are phrases where they have a little bit more strident mid-range, this catches that, or if there's a little bit of harshness in the top end, it catches that. So I'm using it mainly as a compressor, a multi-band compressor. Let's have a listen.
Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Found home, but I got it wrong.
And you will see when she goes down the register, this compresses a little bit more, so it balances out the low end, the low mids, and this one, it catches those, attacks that you might not want to kind of jump out of the speakers and scare you, when you're mixing a vocal. But again, it's subtle, it doesn't do too much. We're talking about 2 dBs
Fell in
max.
love, had to let it go. Don't know where we lost control.
And this one catches the S's, okay? So in case we have gone a little bit too far with our top end. Now, let's have a listen to what we have up to this point.
We lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know where we lost control.
And in isolation, it might sound a little bit excessive, but from this point on, I'm probably going to go and work with this in the context of a mix, because in the context of a mix, you need the vocals to stand out, okay? And these are all tricks that will help you do that. So the next thing that I have is another compressor, okay? And from here on, I'm going to start playing it inside the mix. Let's have a listen. This compressor uses the vocal style algorithm, and this is kind of tailored to vocals. It can give you a very forward sound. I find that with this, I get a more forward sound, where with the Opto, it's a little bit more gentle, more creamy. Let's have a listen.
Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul.
So you see, it pushes it forward really nicely, and it's again a very nice type of compression for vocals. It's not very grabby, but at the same time it's fast enough so that you can have this kind of in-your-face sound for your vocals. Of course, it depends on the vocal as well, right? So this is a pop track. There's a lot of synths around this vocal, so we need to make sure that it stands out. Now, if it was a jazz vocal, I would probably not do all these things, okay? So please understand that there's no secret recipe for vocals. It depends on the style, it depends on the singer, on the microphone, on the track. So I'm showing you just a few examples on a quite complicated setup right now. And then we have the Fabfilter Pro Q again. Again, this one I might not use, I might use. It depends. This is my safety net, so if I find that the vocal is still not right in the mix, I might just add a little bit of mid-range there. That's all that does. And I'm also removing some low-end rumble there as well. And the last thing is, again, a de-esser. And this is, again, the Pro DS. This is so that we can catch any sibilance from all these processes that we added, which are really important. We have to do it because this is a pop track. The vocal needs to be bright and in your face. And with that comes sibilance, unless you've done the trick that I showed you in this video that I talked about earlier. So let's have a listen.
Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. Don't know where we lost control.
So Pro DS is an amazing de-esser. There's no question about that. It sounds really natural. It doesn't create too many artifacts, but if you do the manual de-essing, you will always get better results because it doesn't have to work so hard. Now, The last stage and the last thing that I'm going to do is, of course, add a nice delay and a nice reverb. And for this, I have one sound effect here. You can see it's timeless. It's this one here. And what I'm using is I'm using Timeless 2. I'm using the tape delay here. I'm using a little bit of filtering. And I have a delay right offset at 1.341. I want to create some variation. I don't always like my delays to be timed, to be honest with you.
We gave into our soul. Don't know we lost control.
And I like to make this a little bit dark, you know, sometimes it depends on what I have, but I especially want to make it a little bit darker because I'm going to follow it up with the Fabfilter Pro R, which is the reverb. And this is in series, so the vocal goes to the delay and then that delay goes to the reverb. And I'm getting a very nice spacey sound, you know, out of this.
We gave into our soul. Don't know we lost control. We gave into our soul.
See, but I don't have the mix all the way up. I have the mix around 50%, okay? So we can still hear those distinct delay lines, but they're washed in reverb.
We gave into our soul. Don't know we lost control.
You know, I like it sometimes when it's also bright, the reverb after a dark delay. It kind of gives you this sheen, which I really enjoy. So let's play these vocals in the context of the mix now, and I'm going to add and remove the inserts. I'm going to keep the delay on and the reverb, and check out the meters and check out the loudness that we achieved, but also consider the perceived loudness and how this vocal now sounds in the context of the mix compared to how many dBs we added, right? Because this is what's important. Let's have a listen.
We gave it into ourselves. And I don't know if I
So we're picking at -6 when she goes, no, if I have it in me. Okay, let's have a listen.
We gave it into ourselves. And I don't know if I have it.
Okay, and in me, it's not even, you can't even hear it. Now let's add the chain.
We gave it into ourselves. And I don't know if I have it in me to let somebody in again. And I don't know if I really believe. And I don't know if I have it in me.
So see this fader, see how compact these vocals are, and this is one of the keys to getting a really punchy, good pop vocal sound, especially when you have tracks like this where you have like pads, you have arpeggiators, you have a bass, you have big drums, you have, you know, all those sorts of things that get into the way of the vocals because they're all in the mid-range, most of these things, you know, all the synths are in the mid-range. That's why I choose this track to show you all these things, because it's a very dense track, and if you want to make vocals stand out in such a dense arrangement, you need to have like a really, really good series of processing, well thought. What do you want to do? How do you want to get there so that you can do this? Okay, and like I said, I would probably add some coloring EQs, maybe some coloring compressors normally, but I wanted to show you how you can do this just using the Fabfilter effects. I'm adding the color with Saturn II, for example, in this case. So now let's have a listen, and I'm going to start removing things one by one and see that even if we remove one piece of the puzzle, maybe the end result is not as good, and maybe sometimes things fall apart. I'm going to remove the Pro Q3, the corrective one first, and you will see what's going to happen, right?
We gave it into ourselves. And I don't know if I have it in me to let somebody in again. And I don't know if I really believe. And I don't know if I have it in me.
It doesn't sound right, does it, when I remove it? Even though we're just removing like a few dBs on some frequencies, when I remove it, the vocals sound really strange. They sound boxy, because everything else is, all these frequencies that bother us really get, you know, in the front when it comes to, when you add all this compression and saturation. So it's really important that you take care of these things, okay?
I lost control. We gave it
becomes cloudy. You need to work more on this. It's not there yet. Let's remove some more stuff. I'm going to remove some of the compressors now and see what difference they make.
lost control. We can't reach our soul. No more lost control. We can't reach our soul. Found home.
The parallel one.
Found love, had to let it go. Don't know where we lost control. We gave every inch of our soul. And I don't know if I have it in me to let somebody in again. And I don't know if I really believe. And I don't know if I have it in me. And I don't know if I have it in me to let somebody in again. And I don't know if I really believe. And I don't know if I have it in me.
So there you go. This is a hypothetical vocal chain using just Fabfilter plugins to process your lead vocals. From the very first EQ to the compressors, to the de-essers, to the saturators, to the delays and reverbs. So this is all done by using just Fabfilter plugins. So there you go. I hope that this answer some of your questions, and I hope that you found this useful, even if you're not using Fabfilter plugins, because basically all the principles apply to the stock Cubase plugins, to any other plugins that you might have, to any other company's plugins. I would follow the same procedure and try to get my vocals up front in the mix, clear, loud, and in your face. So, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments down below what you think, how you use the Fabfilter plugins yourself when you're mixing vocals. If you want to share some tips down in the comments, I would really appreciate that. I think that everybody would appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next one, my friends. Have fun and take care.